Chapter 280, Causing an Uncontrollable Disaster 2. First, you have to integrate yourself into nature and try your best to become a part of this nature. It's like you know your body very well, because your body is also a part of your existence. Similarly, if one could become a part of nature, it would be very easy to understand and sense it. This is also the fundamental reason why the School of General Senses advocates nature and primitivism. The specific sensing method is actually very simple. It's to let you try your best to integrate into nature and use your microscopic perception to sense the matter or appearance you want to sense. Remember, this sensing process must be in line with the way of nature, Ku Qingshan said. What is the way of nature? Zhu Tui asked. Different substances or phenomena have slightly different paths of nature. Like water, it was more polymorphic. Flow, stillness, urgency, slowness, expansion, and retreat were its natural ways. It also represented different forms and abilities. For example, in the semi-static lake outside, you can sense the initial frequency of the original quantum frequency of the water. The abilities you obtain are mainly for defense. If you wanted to obtain the offensive ability of the water element, you still had to comprehend the great rivers and seas and experience the rise and fall of the tides. For example, a mountain. The initial frequency of the original quantum frequency that you sensed on the small mountain of our Perception Instantiation Research Center is the same as the original quantum frequency that the large mountain ranges in this world can sense. However, there was a difference between them. It also had a huge impact on their abilities. The smaller and more subtle something was, the easier it was to sense its original quantum frequency. If you plan to walk along the Earth element path or the mountain path, you can first sense the small mountain in our school. If you gain something, you can go to the mountains in the outside world to sense them. If you really reached your limit, it's not impossible for you to suppress a genetic transmuter, Ku Qingshan said. By the way, Mr. Ku, you mentioned before that the original quantum frequency has two frequencies internally and externally. What we are sensing now is the external frequency of the original quantum frequency, right? What is the internal frequency? Zhu Tui asked. Ku Qingshan glanced at Zhu Tun and nodded slowly. The resonance between the internal and the external is a sign that we have achieved a small success in a certain ability of the School of General Senses. If you only sensed the original quantum frequency outside your body, such as the original quantum frequency of fire, in that case, the instantiation of fire could only be shown through controlling its influence. You can't materialize flames out of thin air, but you can use your mind power to affect the flames that already exist. I can only materialize and affect the existing flames if I can sense the original quantum frequency of the fire of the outside world. I can't produce flames out of thin air. Yes, we call it an external fire. What about the internal fire? Zhu Tui asked. This explanation has to be slightly idealistic and even mysterious. According to the ancient books of Wuxia, the human body formed its own world. The outside world was a big world, while the inside was a small world. The so-called inner and outer worlds were actually unified. Creation was mysterious. Man was the strength of all things in the world. What was in the outside world was in the inner world of the human body. The reason why they did not discover it was because their level of cognition had not reached that level. It was just like 100 years ago when humans were obsessed with technology. They could not understand how humans could really fly into the sky and burrow into the ground through genetic evolution. In that era, the humans thought that these abilities we have were very idealistic and fantastical. Similarly, what we think is very idealistic and fantastical might just be that our level of cognition is not up to par. In fact, there were some things that we had already done, but we were unable to explain this ability completely with scientific theories. For example, superpowers. Ku Qingshan's words contained a lot of information. Zhu Tui thought for a while before he completely understood. Mr. Ku, I understand what you mean. After sensing the original quantum frequency of the external fire, we can continue to sense the original quantum frequency of the internal fire. Would we be able to possess superpowers if we cooperated with the outside world? Then I have a question. What form does our internal fire take? Zutui asked. What form do internal fires take? This involved the traditional five elements theory of yin and yang in the Wuxia sector. Among the five elements, the heart was the fire. After I sensed that the original quantum frequency of the external fire had communicated with the original quantum frequency of the internal fire for a long time. The genetic base point of the internal fire that I activated is located at the heart, Kakingshan said. Is the purpose of communicating with the original quantum frequency internally and externally ultimately to activate the genetic base points of the internal fire in the heart? Then, Mr. Ku, since you have already activated the genetic base points of the internal fire, why don't you find a way to locate that point and let us activate them? If that's the case, our school of general senses will be able to grow rapidly, Zutui said. Do you think we haven't thought about it? It's basically impossible. Why? Zutui was surprised. Because the genetic base points in each person's 5 organs are completely different. My method of locating the genetic base point of the internal fire was completely useless on another person.